The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing was the very first marketing book that I ever read. Back in the day, my source for looking out for the perfect marketing book to read was to just Google must-read marketing books. And this one popped up as the most recommended one. Trust me, the 22 laws in the book are given to you guys to the point. There is absolutely no information out there that could confuse you. Instead, it gives you the perfect amount of information you require to understand the concept in detail. So, without further ado, let's dive into the 22 laws of marketing. But before we do that, you know the drill. Like, share and subscribe to the channel by hitting the bell notification icon so that you get notified the next time I upload my content on another marketing book out there. And yeah, I think that's about it for the introduction. Let's get into the video. Word law, more often than not, you try to relate it to certain laws of a country, certain laws of a product that you guys need to abide by or something like that. So, for example, when it comes to advertising, you need to abide by the laws of ASCI, that is Advertising Standards Council of India. But the 22 laws that are mentioned in this book are not in reference to any country, or they're not specific rather to any country or any product category. They are universal in nature. What they end up doing is that they just end up giving you a broader perspective on what you need to do in order to achieve the best results from your marketing efforts. So let's just dive into the 22 laws. The law of leadership. It is better to be first than it is to be better. This law highlights that the main issue with marketing is not that you need to convince people that your product is better. Instead, you need to come up with a category where your product is first. Okay, because the book says that it's a lot easier, and which I completely agree with, by the way, it's much easier to convince someone that you are first rather than having to convince someone that you are better than the one who made the first impression on their mind. The law of category. If you can't be the first in a category, set up a new category you can be first in. Let's be honest. It's not always going to be the case where you have this opportunity of being the first in your product category. Forget first. Today, the world is so competitive that even being second or the third is a task or is too much to ask for. So, in a situation like that, how do you ensure that your product stands out from the competition? The best way to ensure that your product stands out from the competition is if you come up with a category which is your own, which is something that distinguishes your product from the rest. If you haven't checked out my analysis on the Blue Ocean Shift strategy, the book Blue Ocean Shift, and my learnings from it, I'll link it somewhere on the top so that you guys can go through it. It talks about just this. It's about creating your own blue ocean where your competitors are minimized and you get maximum advantage. The law of the mind. It is better to be first in the mind than it is to be first in the marketplace. This is one of my favorite laws. It states that marketing is not a battle of product. It's a battle of perception. So it's all about ensuring that your product is right here instead of ensuring that it's in the marketplace. Because as a matter of fact, if your product stays in the mind of your consumer, the consumer is not going to get affected with any other product that's available on the shelf in the marketplace, because they've already made up their mind. They know that they want this product. They know that the product has worked for them. And even if the particular product is not placed right in the front on the market shelf, they will still opt for that product. So your competitor is almost taken out of the picture. The law of the perception. Marketing is not a battle of product. It's a battle of perception. Perception here is referring to the perception that a consumer derives after using your product. So the times our marketing efforts do not focus on what the consumer can expect after using the product, because More often than not, your communication, your 30-second TV commercial, etc., is only talking about the benefits of the product. But you aren't talking about it from a broader perspective about how the consumer is going to feel when they use their product. And that makes a lot of difference. The law of focus. The most powerful concept in marketing is owning a word in the prospect's mind. Now, the word need not be a complicated one. It just has to be something that your consumers can connect with. So, if I were to give you an example, the word chocolate and the brand Cadbury work very well together. It's this one category or this one word space that Cadbury has captured in its entirety. So if I were to refer to chocolate and ask you to just name another brand referring to that, I am sure 95% of us will pick up Cadbury as a name. This is how the brand has positioned itself in the minds of the consumer. The law of exclusivity. Two companies cannot hold the same word in the prospect's mind. Since we've already taken the example of chocolates, let's just stick to that. Now, as I mentioned, chocolate as a word association is very closely linked to Cadbury. Okay, but does that mean that from a consumer's point of view, there are no other brands that can come into the space of chocolates? Definitely not. There are many brands of other chocolates available in the market which the consumers might relate to. So then it's about creating a unique space within the category of chocolates. And the best example that I can think of in this case is Fabel chocolates. Now, when Fabel was launched, what they tried to do is that they tried to position themselves in the premium chocolate category. So, from a consumer's point of view, it comes up as if it's chocolate, it has to be Cadbury. But when it's premium chocolates, it has to be Fabel chocolates. The law of the ladder. The strategy to use depends on which rung you occupy on the ladder. Now the question that arises is, what is this ladder? So as per the book, there's a ladder that comes into play where each of the brands are placed. So say for example, if you take the category of noodles, Maggi is at the top of the ladder, followed by Yippee and other noodles later in the bottom of the ladder. So you need to devise your strategy, your marketing strategy, based on where you are placed at the marketing ladder at this point of time. Are you at the top position? Then your marketing strategy needs to be devised in a way that you try and retain the top position. But if you're not at the top, then your strategy needs to be devised in a way on how do I get to the top. The law of duality. In the long run, every market becomes a two-horse race. Now, within a product category, there may be many products available for a consumer to choose from. But at the end of the day, as per the book, the battle is only between the top two. So, if we take an example of, say, coffee brands, there are many coffee brands out there. But the real fight is only between Nescafe and Brew. The law of the opposite. If you are shooting for the second place, your strategy is determined by the leader. It all depends on what the leader in your category is trying to position itself as. Say for example, your leader is positioning the brand as an X product that gives you X advantages. Now for your brand, you need to ensure that you shouldn't and you cannot replicate the positioning that this particular leader has already put in the minds of your consumers. You need to create your own space. You need to ensure that your positioning is different from that of your leader and try to retain that so closely and so well that you end up putting that particular positioning in the minds of your consumers at the very top. The law of division. Over time, a category will divide and become two or more categories. This is a common phenomenon. Let's just take the category of drinks. Now we have soft drinks, which are aerated drinks like a Coke, a Thumbs Up, a Pepsi, etc. We have non-aerated drinks, which is Maaza, Slice, etc. We have flavored water, regular water, cold coffees, etc. So in the long run, a broader category is bound to split up into smaller areas or smaller entities. But from a marketing point of view, you need to take these separate entities also into consideration as your competitor.
The law of perspective. Marketing effects take place over an extended period.
So let's just think about it. Can we expect our sales to go up overnight? Definitely not. That's not happening. But does that mean that our marketing efforts have failed? No, of course not. It doesn't mean that our marketing efforts have failed, because you need to understand that whatever type of communication you put out in the market, it is going to get affected. It is going to affect your consumer, because you are not only pushing your product in their mind, you are also pushing your competitor out of their mind. You are trying to constantly make the consumer realize that, hey, you're using brand Y and I have a brand X, which is better because of these things. So even if the consumer may not overnight switch to my brand, he is still motivated to switch over.
The law of extension. There is an irresistible pressure to extend the equity of the brand.
Now, when your brand starts performing well, you come under the assumption that whatever I do now, I am sure my brand is bound to succeed. That's when the concept of line extensions come in, and you meet the famous fate of Pond's toothpaste. That worked really, really badly for the brand. It's important to understand that your line extensions are in sync with what your product stands for, what your brand stands for. If you have no idea what brand extensions or line extensions are, I have a separate video for it, which I will link at the top. So you guys can go ahead and watch that video and understand the concept in depth. But to simply put it, it's important to understand the category fit that your brand is into, and ensure you don't experiment so much that it loses the whole aim of why the brand exists.
The law of sacrifice. You have to give up something to get something.
Clearly, in the market scenario, you have a specific budget being allocated to your brand. It's important to understand that this brand marketing budget is utilized in the best way possible. You should not be under the impression that whatever you do is going to help you. You may let go of a product category altogether if it's not working well for you in the market. Or you can let go of a promotion channel which is costing you a lot but is not giving you the kind of returns that you're expecting.
The law of attributes. For every attribute, there is an opposite effective attribute.
More often than not, this happens with a lot of brands where you try to emulate the leader. But that is not something that you should opt for at all. Instead, look out for something that is unique to you and then pitch that to your consumers.
The law of candor. When you admit a negative, the prospect will give you a positive.
It's against human nature to accept that there's a problem. And more often than not, the biggest task in marketing is to identify what went wrong and then try to come up with a solution that can resolve the problem. Okay? So what happens in this case is that brands just tend to feel that, okay, maybe this communication did not work or something like that, but they're not getting into the crux of the problem. One of the brilliant examples of this is in the case of Listerine. What they did is that they knew consumers really hate the taste of Listerine because it's too strong, gives you that fiery feel, etc. So the tagline that they came up with is that the taste you hate twice a day. Now this is brilliant communication. You are taking the problem, you're understanding the problem that the consumer is facing, and you're working around it in a brilliant way.
The law of singularity. In each situation, only one move will produce substantial results.
Now, marketers believe that success is something that you lead to after making small efforts. But as a matter of fact, it may not always be about that. It may be about that one amazing stroke that you get through, that one amazing communication, that one amazing positioning, that one amazing offer that helps you excel.
The law of unpredictability. Unless you write your competitors' plans, you can't predict the future.
Now, while most of the companies focus on short-term planning and short-term quarter results to gauge what their next move or their next strategy would be, it's always beneficial to look at things from a long-term perspective. And this is important because even though you cannot predict the future, you can definitely understand or predict changes and trends that can be expected to alter your communication.
The law of success. Success often leads to arrogance, and arrogance to failure.
And I cannot say this enough. Most of the times, when a brand reaches the top position, they feel they've had it all. And they do not do enough, or they do not look at things objectively to ensure that they retain their position. And what happens in the long run is that because of this, they lose out on their position and someone else just comes up. Now it's important to understand that your competitor is just around the corner. A little laid back attitude can put you off a long way.
The law of failure. Failure is to be expected and accepted.
Now it makes a lot of sense to drop things in between instead of trying to correct them. Because understand one thing, it's going to be really difficult for your consumer to think on the same lines as you do. So it's much better to dump things and move ahead instead of trying to make things work out for you in the future.
The law of hype. The situation is often the opposite of the way it appears in the press.
Understand that when you need the hype, there's something wrong with your brand or your company or your product. When your product is working really well in the market, you don't need that extra hype.
The law of acceleration. Successful programs are not built on fads, they are built on trends.
Understand that a fad is visible to your consumers. It goes up and down, and it's not something that you can rely on in the long term. Whereas a tide is invisible. So it does have a great effect on your consumers and can work in the long run.
The law of resources. Without adequate funding, an idea won't get off the ground.
It's important to have a strong idea in place before you go set out looking for the money. Because you need the money to stay in the mind right now and stay there for a while. It's important to ensure that your funding is in sync with the requirement of your idea. So go ahead and incorporate these 22 laws into your brand checklist and ensure that your marketing strategy is to the point, taking into account all of these laws that we've just spoken about. Let us know in the comments below which one was your favorite law and which law has taught you the most about marketing from these 22 that we've listed today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something out of it. If you did, again, we are very much open to any sort of feedback, be it positive or negative. Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Before you leave, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon so that the next time we come up with another video on marketing books, you guys are notified about it and you can come check out the video. Until next time, bye bye.